In 1964, a lone voice and an acoustic guitar were all it took to put the establishment on notice. By 1992, the warning wasn't polite anymore. It was a sonic battering ram. Hey music lovers, Del here, and welcome back to Groovy Tunes. Now, if you've hung around this channel for a while, you know we live and breathe the golden era of 60s and 70s rock. We know the history, and we definitely know a classic protest anthem when we hear one. But recently, my grandson was putting together a school speech on a 90s band called Rage Against the Machine. Hearing about their impact got the gears turning in my head. I started wondering, how did the protest song evolve so drastically over 30 years? How did the vehicle for rebellion change from a quiet folk club in Greenwich Village to a massive wall of screaming amplifiers in Los Angeles? Today, we are putting two defining tracks head-to-head. Bob Dylan's The Times, They Are Changing, and Rage Against the Machine's Wake Up. A 90s powerhouse track that actually borrows a heavy riff right out of the Led Zeppelin playbook. We're going to see how the message of rebellion survived, while the noise around it completely transformed. Let's get into it. Let's set the time machine to 1964. The post-war boom is starting to crack. The civil rights movement is in full swing, and the counterculture is just starting to find its footing. But down in Greenwich Village, the weapon of choice for the youth wasn't a distorted electric guitar or a massive drum kit. It was a simple acoustic guitar, a harmonica, and a whole lot of poetry. When Bob Dylan dropped the title track of his third album, it wasn't just a song, it was a generational line drawn in the sand. Now, as classic rock fans, we love our studio production. But listen to the production on this track, or rather, the total lack of it. It is entirely stripped down. It's stark. It's bare. Dylan doesn't have a wall of Marshall stacks to hide behind. That minimalism was incredibly intentional. By removing all the musical clutter, he forces you to listen to the words. The sound itself is gentle, almost like a waltz, which creates this brilliant, eerie contrast with how heavy the message actually is. He's looking directly at the senators, the congressmen, the parents, and the old guard. He's essentially saying, the world is moving on, the waters are rising, and if you don't step aside, you're going to drown. It's a warning, but it's delivered like a polite acoustic prophecy. It was the perfect protest song for its time. But as the decades rolled on, the world got a lot louder. We went through Vietnam, Watergate, the excess of the 80s, and into the commercialized boom of the early 90s. The frustrations of the youth were still there, but a solitary acoustic guitar just couldn't cut through the static anymore. The new generation didn't just want to warn the establishment. They wanted to wake it up with a sledgehammer. And that brings us to 1992. Welcome to Los Angeles, 1992. The geopolitical landscape had completely shifted. We had the 24-hour news cycle, rising corporate greed, and a whole lot of systemic tension boiling over in the streets. The world was overstimulated. A quiet harmonica just wasn't going to turn any heads. Enter Rage Against the Machine. They didn't just want to write a protest song, they wanted to weaponize the groove. And on the closing track of their debut album, a song called Wake Up, they achieved absolute sonic perfection. And the best part? They did it by borrowing a page right out of the classic rock Holy Grail. If you listen to the main driving riff of Wake Up, you're going to hear something incredibly familiar. It is a heavy, drop-tuned, aggressive homage to Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. Tom Morello, the guitarist for Rage, took that iconic, driving, Middle Eastern-flavored Jimmy Page progression and pumped it full of 90s adrenaline. This right here is why rock history is so groovy. The 90s generation of protest rockers were directly fueled by the 70s stadium gods. They took the massive, larger-than-life sound of classic rock and fused it with the raw, political urgency of a punk rock basement show. Let's compare the production to Dylan, where Dylan was stripped down and minimal. Rage Against the Machine is a dense, impenetrable wall of sound. You have Tim Comerford's bass locked in, incredibly tight, with Brad Wilkes' drums, creating this heavy, funk metal groove that physically forces you to nod your head. It's aggressive, it's distorted, and it takes up all the sonic space in the room. And then there are the vocals. Bob Dylan crooned a poetic warning to the older generation, asking them to kindly step aside. Zach De La Rocha, the frontman for Rage, takes the exact opposite approach. He uses a rhythmic, rap-punk delivery to scream directly at his own generation. He isn't asking the establishment to change the rules. He is grabbing his peers by the collar and screaming, "Wake up, stop sleeping, stop being complacent, and look at what is happening around you." It's not a polite prophecy anymore. It is a desperate, furious alarm clock. So, we've got a solitary folk singer with a harmonica in a quiet coffee house and a funk metal band with enough volume to rattle your teeth in a massive arena. At first glance, they couldn't be more different. But if we pull back the musical layers, we find that the DNA of these two protest songs is remarkably similar. It's an unbroken line of rebellion that runs right through the heart of rock and roll. What do Bob Dylan and Rage Against the Machine really have in common? It's not about acoustic versus electric or singing versus rapping. It comes down to three fundamental things. Raw, undeniable emotion. Neither of these artists is just reading from a script. You can hear the genuine urgency in Dylan's shaky voice and the absolute fury in Zach De La Rocha's scream. That raw human authenticity is what makes you stop and really listen. The groove. This is groovy tunes, after all. A powerful protest song needs a musical backbone. Dylan used that steady folk rhythm to draw you in, and Rage used that massive Zeppelin-sized riff to grab you by the throat. Both use music as a vehicle to make sure you feel the message. Uncompromising courage. Both Dylan and Rage Against the Machine were directly challenging the status quo of their time, and they didn't water down their message for a pop audience. They spoke truth to power, which is the most rock and roll thing you can do. The noise around the protest completely transformed. The amplifiers got bigger, the distortion got heavier, and the storytelling got more aggressive, reflecting the louder, more chaotic world of the 90s. But the soul, the core desire to fight the power and give a voice to the voiceless, that stayed exactly the same. It was just a different generation, choosing a different kind of hammer to deliver the same message. So, to my grandson and his classmates doing their school projects on 90s rock, you kids are alright. The music might be heavier, but the spirit of the 60s and 70s is alive and well in those tracks. Rock and roll has always been, and will always be, the greatest vehicle for rebellion we have. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments. Are you Team Acoustic Warning or Team Sonic Battering Ram? Let me know your all-time favorite protest anthem, no matter what decade it came from.
Okay, let's go.
If you dug this deep dive into rock history, do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep spinning those records and stay groovy.